Spoiler alert, selling a home in Los Angeles is often a lot more expensive than home sellers think. And today we're going to dive into it. Scott Himelstein with the Scott Himelstein Group. Sellers just aren't prepared for how much it costs to sell their home in today's market. It's really outrageous when you think about it, all the fees. And if you're a seller, well, guess what? You carry the burden of a majority of those costs. And there's compensation to the agents for starters. That's a huge part of your closing costs, right? You got the listing side, and then if you decide to offer compensation to the buyer's agent, right? And this is why I always highly suggest that you make sure you find the best agent for you. And there's all sorts of discount brokers out there, but in today's market right now, where homes are taking a little bit longer to sell, then you know what? It's really important that you have a professional on your side. So that way, when you hire the right real estate agent, they're able to help you with problems that arise. And there's always problems that you're going to run into throughout the transaction. Hear me out. Do not accept any offer until you have received a net sheet. That's an estimated closing statement that details all the costs in the transaction, from property taxes, from homeowners association, the HOA dues, right? Document fees, escrow, title, buyer and seller agent compensation, city transfer tax, documentary transfer tax, and all those miscellaneous charges. You want to know all of this up front so you can be able to plan ahead. And you can also put how much you owe on the house also, so you can plan for that as well. And if you have solar, you can account for that also, some of the fees on your estimated closing statement as well. Well, a lot of you actually don't realize how expensive it really is to move right now. I mean, it's actually double, I would say even triple in cost, especially if you're moving out of state or need help packing. So make sure you get a moving quote before you even list your house, so you know what you're getting into and you ensure that you'll be able to have enough proceeds left to actually move. And so when the movers actually come out, you don't want to do it over the phone because nobody thinks, in square feet. Right? So they actually go by the numbers that you give them if you only do it over the phone. And every single time our sellers, if they do that, well, they end up underestimating, and then the day of the move, you end up having to pay a lot more money. So better to get that quote and shop it around up front. And then to piggyback off that, the movers really book out really quickly, especially getting to the spring and summer months. So it's really important that you're able to book that ahead of time. All right, so let's talk about some of the little but costly housekeeping things. Now, you're going to need curb appeal, because your curb appeal doesn't just start at the curb, it starts online, where 98% of the buyers, according to Realtor.com, actually look for a home online. I'm always curious who the 2% actually are that don't really look online. So everybody's looking online. So that means that basically the photos, the digital media that you have has to showcase your home right away online, as well as when they drive up to the house. So this means on the exterior, you might have to have mulch, fresh plants, washing or fixing the windows, replacing that really nasty carpet, right? Even small things that you've ignored for years probably should be dealt with, right? And this is where bringing in a handyman or a contractor to get an estimate, these costs can add up, right? Gardeners are pricey right now, mulch is pricey right now. So prepping your home is not cheap. And then you throw into the fact, just to give you an idea, simple landscaping could easily be $3,000 to $5,000. Painting the interior of your house can be $7,500 to $10,000, depending on the size of your house. Flooring, right? If you're putting in a luxury vinyl plank flooring, easily could be $6 to $7 a square foot. And this is one of the reasons, going back to that we've talked about so many times on our videos, having the Concierge Plus program has been a game changer for our sellers, because a lot of our sellers don't have the funds to be able to do that work and pay for it before they actually close escrow. Through our Concierge Plus program, you can do things such as redoing the kitchen, redoing the flooring, painting the walls inside and out, just to name a few, as well as the landscaping. And it's a game changer for our sellers because if they don't owe anything until they close escrow, not a single cent upfront out of their pocket. There's no upcharges. It's literally what you negotiate with our contractor. And what we found is our homes that enter into that program end up selling for a much higher dollar amount and much quicker, as opposed to if they were just to sell it as is. Now let's talk about time. This is an important one because so many of my clients always call me asking, why can't they just put the home on the market? And that's because it takes time, right? We need to photograph the home. We need to film it. We need to stage it, all before we go live on the market. And that takes days, sometimes it takes weeks, and it's critical to make sure your house is show ready because that's what makes it sell, especially in today's market. All right, let's talk about the inconvenience of selling your home. Right now we have one of the sellers has a disability, right? They have kids, they have pets, they're working from home, right? And you have everyone calling, knocking, asking questions, when your house is on the market, right? A lot of times they'll just actually knock on the front door, which they shouldn't be doing, but it happens sometime. And then you clean your house for hours for a 5 p.m. showing, only for the buyer to drive by or not show up at all. That actually happened earlier today. You were supposed to have a showing at one of our listings, and the agent and our client not only never showed up, they never even let us know what the deal was, why they couldn't even make it, right? So that happens all the time. And so to help, you really got to have to actually talk with your agent to kind of vet the buyers ahead of time and confirm interest before a showing. So ask buyers about their non-negotiables. If your home doesn't meet them, then maybe we shouldn't be showing your home to them, not wasting anybody's time. But you kind of have to know there's going to be an inconvenience of getting your house ready, especially if you're painting or redoing the flooring. You're going to have stuff in your home moved around. And that's something we can do through our Concierge Plus program and our crew, that we can take care of all of that for you, because I don't want you moving a sofa from upstairs to downstairs when our interior designer tells you to move something from one room to the next. Look, at the end of the day, I always tell our sellers, beware, it's exhausting, right? You'll get tired. You'll stop cleaning as thoroughly. You'll leave dishes in the sink. And this process is a marathon, right? Not a sprint. And emotionally, I'm not going to lie to you, it's tough, right? People are going to pick apart your home, right? And it's normal to feel personally attacked, right? When people criticize your wallpaper or your upgrades, it hurts for sure, but that's just human nature. It just kind of comes with the territory. All right, another shock for sure is the buyer's inspection report. It's long, it's 200 pages long. It probably only needs to be about 45 or 50 pages. And with that, it feels like there's 5,000 items that the home inspector calls out. And you'll think, wow, are they still going to buy my home? Is the Department of Building and Safety going to red tag my home looking at this report? Guess what? That's normal. So to reduce the stress, right, you can do your own home inspection beforehand. It will cost you about $550 for the inspection. And then if you do any other auxiliary inspections, maybe like the chimney, the sewer line, termite, those all have extra costs involved as well. This way you can know what to expect. So we actually have a home that's closing in a few days. And this home, we sold it as is. It needed a lot of work. It was a fixer, but since we were going to sell it as is and we weren't going to do any work to the home, we recommended to the home seller that, hey, what we actually recommend for you is get a home inspection, basically have the sewer line inspected, get a termite report, so when buyers submit the offers, right, they can feel more confident when they actually submit their offers. Well, guess what? We ended up selling the home with multiple offers in just a few days, and multiple buyers removed their inspection contingencies because they already had a copy of the home inspection report. Also, be ready for tons of inspections. Speaking of inspections, right? Because buyers can and often do bring in inspectors for everything the roof, the sewer, the windows, the HVAC system, fencing, flooring, mold, even geology, and it's all allowed during their investigation period. So here in California, that's usually 17 days on the contract, though I always try to shorten it between 5 to 10 days. Really, at the end of the day, if it's a regular house, you do not need more than 5 to 7 days to inspect the house. Now, if it's up on a hillside, you have to do a geological survey. That might be a little different. But still, it's overwhelming having that many people come through. Speaking of stress, repair requests. Now, buyers often ask for credits or repairs at the end of their inspection time period contingency when you're already exhausted, and typically you're only a week into the escrow. My advice, right, is that if you're going to offer something, give a credit. That way there's no disagreement during the final walkthrough. But some buyers will insist on repairs before closing. And this is where having a really seasoned agent really matters. They know how to negotiate and guide you through this. Now, one tip with this, like one thing you have to think about is even if you think the home inspector is completely off base, right? And if we're talking about a few $1,000s, you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to actually start all over again and give the next buyer that same home inspection report? Because you're probably going to have to end up dealing with it again. So you have to, as a seller, kind of take the insurance company mentality where you have to look at it and look, hey, you know what? What's the least amount I can give to the buyer to wipe my hands of this? That's the mindset you really need to have. Now, if they're asking for a $60,000 credit, we recently had that where a buyer actually asked for that and sent us the request at almost midnight. Look, I'm probably going to recommend to the seller that, hey, you know what, let's just take our chances with the next buyer. But if we're talking a few $1,000s here, you know what, you're probably better off just moving on, right? Because you're probably going to end up having the same problem with the next buyer, and there's no guarantee that the next buyer may actually ask for more, right? So this is a conversation you really need to have in detail with your real estate agent. Another thing sellers aren't ready for right now, and especially here in Southern California, is the slower pace of today's market. So in my area, the average days on market is about 38 days in 91326, right? And in Los Angeles, that's 41 days overall. 3 years ago, it was under 20 days. And for a while there during the pandemic, it was under 10 days. So that's a huge difference. So you might not get showings for a week. You might do an open house and only see neighbors show up. Like that happens. So we're not in that 500 offers in 2 days market anymore. So you have to plan accordingly, especially if you have a tight timeline. That's why I bring it up. If you have to be somewhere in another part of the country within 30 to 45 days, then you really need to make sure you plan accordingly when it comes to that. Oh, and here's a fun one. Furniture negotiations. This seems to be more and more common these days. So some buyers insist furniture actually be included, while other buyers won't buy unless it's gone. But you know what? If there's a loan involved, you can't just include the furniture in the contract, right? It has to be negotiated separately. So don't be surprised by that. And trust me, most buyers don't want your stuff, even if you spent a fortune on it, including staging furniture. So staging furniture, you know what? We've had buyers where they've actually asked for the staged furniture to be included, and we've had to tell them no. Or they can work it out with the stager and buy the furniture from the stager directly. We've had that happen also. And then a lot of times, you know, you're dealing with older furniture that the quality and craftsmanship of the furniture is really good, but it's just not modern, and buyers today just don't want that type of furniture. All right, last and not least is the 2024 compensation changes, right? So when you hire a listing agent, you agree to a specific commission. Now buyers, right, that gets negotiated separately, now include in their offer what they want the seller to pay. And you, the seller, can accept or negotiate the amount. It's all part of the offer now. Now, I personally like this change because it gives a lot of transparency, but it really kind of brings everything into the open. In conclusion, I'm Scott Himelstein with the Scott Himelstein Group. I'm one of the top selling agents here in Los Angeles County. So if you're looking to buy or sell, I'd love to help you. If you've got any value from this video, please definitely hit the subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you on the next video.